Hello, I'm Anita, founder of Anita's List and host of the Anita's List podcast. Over the last 20 years, I've helped more than 12,000 first-time parents choose all their baby kit and prepare for parenthood, both practically and emotionally. I'm delighted to welcome the force of nature that is Emma Bianco, founder of Pure Earth Collection, the multi-award-winning eco-children's brand. Emma came into my world over 16 years ago when she worked with me as her first job out of uni. And frankly, the world is an infinitely better place for her presence in it. We talk about Emma's journey into motherhood and entrepreneurship with a focus on all things non-toxic parenting, as Emma's expert knowledge and passion for the subject are a gift for us all. This is a conversation that will have long-lasting ripple effects in your world. I so hope you enjoy our conversation and find it helpful too. So, Emma, I am so excited.
Oh, thank you for having me, Anita. It's lovely to be here. So nice.
Such a pleasure, such a pleasure. We've just figured out it's 16 years.
Yeah,
since
16
we
years
met.
since I came to work for you.
Oh, my goodness.
Helping you with your wonderful baby, registry assistants. Lovely. Oh, it's amazing.
All things baby. And you were fresh
Exactly.
out of uni, weren't
Fresh
you?
out of uni, yeah. Yeah, my
Wow.
first job out of uni.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think I was having a chat with your wonderful sister, Anna, who was a client.
Yes.
And I was scratching my
Having
head
had
going,
4 kids.
Four
herself.
kids. Yeah, she was a very good client.
Very good client.
And I think I said to Anna, oh my goodness, we need some more help in the office. Have you got any ideas? And she's like, aha, yes, my sister is really organized and she would be amazing. And there you arrived like an angel, actually, in that moment where we were really in need of your help. And actually, it's really nice to go somewhere where you're really needed.
Oh, it was lovely. It was such an amazing job first out of uni. And, I had finance in my sights and I wanted to go into finance. And I ended up going into finance afterwards. But
Yeah.
now I have founded Pure Earth Collection, which very much, it's now kids, but very much started out as
Mm,
baby stuff.
mm.
So that experience of working for you and having done the baby part, I was like,
Yeah.
well, I have experience in the baby industry already. This is all perfect. It's all coming
Yes.
together.
Yeah. But isn't it interesting how life does that sort
Yeah.
of full circle?
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
And I think Anna said, oh, no, she's a really good babysitter. She'll be great. She'll understand the whole baby world. But actually really did. And Mia and Poppy ended up in the office, I
Yes.
think quite a lot after school, making
Yeah.
elaborate dens with our cardboard
Yeah.
boxes. And you were their favourite, I have to
Oh.
say. And they're very good with their judgment.
Oh.
So when it's ever coming back?
I used to pick them up from school sometimes as
Yes.
well. Do you
Yes,
remember?
you
I used
did
to take
everything.
your
I
car and
know.
go, give them their supper, do their homework. Not much
Yes.
homework, they were so small, but just hang out and have fun with them.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
do you know what? Mia's just turned 25
That's crazy.
and Poppy's 22. So
That's
that
crazy.
is, so in 2008, yeah, Mia would have been 9 and Poppy
Yeah.
would have been 5.
Yeah, amazing.
My goodness
Amazing,
me.
yeah.
Wow. Well, I love that. So then obviously I tried to persuade you to take a full-time job, obviously. But you headed off to Asia, I think.
I went to Asia
yeah.
to start in finance, asset management, and then I came back to London and worked in African finance, finance, but focused in Africa.
Yeah.
Went into private equity. And again, you think, what has this got to do, with now? But
Yeah.
actually, so much of my experience there, the finance part, the business part, the building
Yeah.
business models, has set me up to run my own business. So
Yeah.
everything just kind of tied together wonderfully.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. It's almost with hindsight that you see that, because in the moment
Yes,
you were really, I remember you so clearly as someone who was so passionate about doing good and how could you make a difference. And there you were making a difference in Asia and Africa and sowing the seeds, little did we know,
Yes.
for being a major entrepreneur. And then I think you when you became pregnant, you came back as a client.
Yes, definitely.
We had the
Yeah, I
greatest
did, of
conversations like,
course.
Anita, I'm coming back, but I'm going to be at the other side of the desk.
The first thing my husband did when I said I was pregnant was said, we need to buy a new car. And I said, we need to go to Anita.
Oh, so lovely, so
Yeah.
lovely. And it was lovely meeting him and seeing you in that moment
Yeah.
of entering the wonderful
The
world of
moment of
parenting.
confusion and not
Yeah.
knowing what I was doing or what I needed, and
Yeah.
you just helped like a fairy godmother.
Oh, but it was so interesting, wasn't it? Because having worked alongside me, then to come in as a client,
Yeah.
how was that? Did you feel you already knew quite a lot?
Well, no, because I didn't know. Well, also time had passed. It was 10
Yes.
years later, so there was a whole load
Yes.
of new products on the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
But because I wasn't in the consultancies with you, I
Yes.
was sort of, back end
Yeah.
sorting out stock
Doing the
and,
real work. Yeah.
doing that kind of stuff. So I didn't understand, I didn't know the difference between all the different car seats or what
Yeah.
they meant or
Yeah.
which one would fit my lifestyle. So
Yeah.
actually, so helpful and handy coming to you who had
Yeah.
all the knowledge of the car seats. And,
Yeah.
I'm as you will find out during this podcast, everyone that but everyone else, I am very into non-toxic. And I remember saying to you, Anita, I need a car seat with
Yeah.
no flame retardants.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
knew the answer,
Yeah.
like
Thank
magic.
goodness. Thank goodness. Because you were very direct. It's very interesting how that whole area has changed,
Yes,
interestingly.
yes, it really has. Yeah.
It really has. And how was that entering parenthood moment for you? First of all, being a working pregnant person. How did
Yes.
you find that?
Well, like a lot of pregnant people, we also decided to sell our flat and buy a house.
Yes,
So I was
obviously.
working and
Yeah.
then
Why not
doing
add
up a
that?
house. We got the keys 6 weeks before due date and
Oh,
tore the house apart
yeah.
and put it back together again in 5 weeks. And
Wow.
he was 1 week ahead of his due date. And I remember we were unpacking boxes on a Sunday. And I said, and my husband was like, right, I think we've done enough for today. And I said, no, every box needs to unpack. So we unpacked every box. And then it was the 4th of December on that Sunday. And he said, oh, right, we can have supper and watch telly now. And I said, no, one more thing. And he was like, no. And I said, we have to go and get the Christmas tree.
And you did.
So we did. I dragged him out, put the Christmas tree up, and the next day at 1 o'clock went into labour. So I think my body just
Wow.
relaxed
Yeah.
and thought, right, we're in. It's
Yeah,
done.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
Christmas tree's up. You can have your baby now.
But I mean, you are amazing because that is precision timing. And it's not for the faint-hearted doing a house up anyway. But when you're, heavily pregnant, you did it.
Yes,
I
we did
mean,
it. We did it.
wow,
Yeah.
superhuman
Yeah.
all the way through, all the way through. And that first set of 3 months, which I always think is the hardest, that fourth trimester.
Yes.
How did you find it? Because I guess you were going into Christmas and dark
Going
months
into,
as well.
I had no time to prepare for
Mm,
having a baby at all.
yeah,
I was so focused on getting the house.
yeah.
And then I remember your wonderful delivery arriving.
Hmm.
And I was saying to my husband, you need to put those things together
Yeah.
before the baby arrives. He said,
Yeah.
no, it's too much to do. We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's just so confusing, which on that note, I do regret not having the lovely person who puts them together
Right,
that you
yes.
also offered.
Oh, well, that's interesting. Top tip.
Top tip. Always have that. I blindly trusted that there was a lot of good regulations in the
Mhm.
baby industry that would make sure all the things that I would buy was safe,
Mhm.
non-toxic.
Mhm.
So I was just thinking, right, buy it, whatever it is I need, I'll just buy it.
Mhm.
And then suddenly at sort of 3 or 4 months, I woke up and I looked around my house and I was like, wow,
Mm.
what is all this stuff? Almost all
Mhm.
of it is polyester
Mhm. Mhm.
and it's all so toxic.
Mhm.
And the regulations are not strong enough and not, they're just very
Mhm.
baseline, the regulations.
Mhm.
And, I saw him putting things in his mouth, chewing on things. One time I gave him a comforter to try and, a sleep specialist said, give him a comforter to try and help him sleep.
Mhm.
Gave him the comforter, went back up an hour later and he was just covered in fur balls and they were in his mouth, up his
Mm.
nose. And I looked at the label, it said 100% new fabrics,
Mhm.
polyester.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my goodness. So he's got literally plastic fur
Mhm.
balls in his mouth, up his
Mhm.
nose, and it like
Mhm.
everywhere. What is this stuff? And that was sort of 4 months
Yeah.
postpartum.
Yeah.
And that's when I started really researching things on the baby market.
Mhm.
I was already very naturally non-toxic
Yeah.
living minded
Yeah.
because of my health issues in my early
Mm.
20s. So I already
Mhm.
knew so much about how to look after myself
Mhm.
and, organic living, healthy eating, non-toxic environment.
Mhm.
And then I started looking at the things in the baby market, which as I said, I just assumed they would be better, but
Mhm.
they weren't. They were
Mhm.
actually worse
Mhm.
because they're
Mhm.
more mass produced, cheaper, more
Mhm.
synthetic, more plastics. So that was quite a sort of eye-opening moment when I
Mm,
realized we need to do better. And
mm,
then I started looking for better, and I thought, well, there must be better. I just must
mhm,
have bought the wrong things.
mhm,
So I started looking for natural sensory toys that weren't polyester. Didn't exist.
mhm.
Natural comforters, they do exist, but it was very, very hard to find them.
Yeah,
Like you had to go looking for them. They
yeah.
weren't just there. I think
Mm,
that's slightly better now. You can find a
mhm,
few more natural comforters now, but at the time it was very, very hard to find
mm.
them.
And this was 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
So, yeah, nearly
7
8 years
yeah,
ago.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And play mats,
Mhm,
so toxic,
mhm,
so polyester, so either PVC or polyurethane
mhm.
or the fabric ones are polyester.
Yep.
Um,
Mm,
so yeah, that's where my head started was what are the products that I
mm,
can't find in a
mm,
totally
mm,
natural form?
mm,
The baby sleeping bag was a big one because
mm,
they're all filled with polyester.
mm,
Almost
mm,
all of them, even
mm.
if they say natural, thermoregulating,
Yep,
bamboo, organic.
yep.
Read the small print because 95%
Mm,
of those have
mm,
polyester inside
mm, mm,
as the
mm.
wadding.
And is it right that you can call yourself organic if you're, say, 70% organic? Or is there
So
an issue around the labeling that's actually quite
yes,
misleading,
a
perhaps?
very, very big issue around that. And it
Mm,
depends what regulation you're claiming, what
mm,
standard.
mm,
So the
mm,
Ockeo-Tex
mm.
has different regulations to the GOTS. So GOTS,
Right.
Global Organic Textiles Standard,
Yeah.
requires a much higher organic content to be able
Mm,
to claim organic. I
mhm.
think, but don't quote me on this, I think it's 80% organic, has to be if you
Yeah,
want to claim GOTS.
yeah.
We, as a brand, try and strive for 100% organic
Mhm,
with nothing else in it at all.
mhm,
There's occasions when there's absolutely no
mm,
way, like our swimwear, when you have
mm,
to put 2% lycra in,
mm,
but that's the
mm.
maximum we'd ever go is 2%.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but if you're not GOTS certified, so if
Mm,
it's just, some big high street retailer that's
yeah.
saying organic cotton,
Mm.
that can be 5% organic cotton,
Right. Wow.
as little as 5%, and
Yeah.
they can claim organic,
Mm,
which is crazy. That's not
mm. No,
organic.
and that's just not what we're led to believe by the packaging.
Exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
So I guess your purpose is really brilliant to educate all of us and make products that we can use for our children. So that with a focus on babies as well, so that
Yes.
babies and children are not exposed to those toxins
Yes,
when they're
exactly.
really little.
They're really little. And, the
Mm,
first 1,000 days, so from when you're pregnant to when they're
mm,
2, is
mm,
absolutely crucial for their brain
mm,
development. Their brain
mm.
develops that's sort of 80% of their brain development.
Yeah,
So it's literally that's building essential neural pathways in their
yeah.
brain. And if that's disrupted by a nasty
Mm,
chemical or, a
mm,
harsh toxin
mm,
at a critical stage of development,
mm,
that's when things can really get sort of put
mm,
out for the rest of their life. So
mm,
those first
mm,
1,000 days are this absolute
mm.
most essential
Yeah,
part of their lives to
yeah.
keep them nice and safe and in a nice
Mhm,
non-toxic environment,
mhm,
with lovely
mhm,
natural food, no
mhm.
processed foods.
And it doesn't need to be expensive either, because actually I think what perhaps so many of us do is we buy many, many things,
Yes, yeah.
but actually buying fewer things that are non-toxic
Yes, exactly.
and being really intentional with our choices of what we're buying for our babies
Exactly.
is going to help everything in the long run,
It
isn't it?
really is. And that's,
Yeah.
it's about buying less and it's
Yes.
about finding products that are going to last longer.
Mm,
So
mm,
take teddies, for example.
yes.
I mean, if you go into a regular child's bedroom, they'll
Yeah.
probably have upwards of 20 or 30
Mhm.
teddies.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
over 98% of those teddies
Mm,
are going to be polyester. I mean,
mm,
probably
mm,
100% of them in most
mm.
cases. You don't need all those teddies.
Yeah.
And I know that a lot of teddies are given by well meaning relatives as
Yep.
gifts, and it's so lovely to give gifts and
Mhm.
how lovely of
Mhm.
the relatives.
Yeah.
But you need to send a message out to the relatives
Mm,
saying, we're only accepting natural teddies
mm,
and we would love for you to buy our child gifts. But if you do, maybe club together
mhm.
with the uncles and the aunts or the other
Yeah.
grandparents
Yeah.
or, the other godparents and just buy one
Mm,
natural one instead of
mhm.
5
Mhm.
synthetic, nasty, toxic ones that are going to release microplastics all over the place.
Yes, because it feels slightly awkward to direct people, but actually part of it is just we don't know.
Yes, exactly.
And so it's having that conversation with them in advance. So did you really realise that actually the polyester teddy is actually going to be more harmful to our little one than anyone might have thought?
Yeah.
But it's such a top gift, isn't it, a teddy?
Yes,
Because
it really
and they
is,
always look really cute as
Yeah.
well. So I know in your range you've got a lot of those comforters and starting to have more soft toys
Yeah, so
as well, haven't
it's
you?
not
Which is
something we
lovely.
do that many
Yeah.
of at the moment, but we're looking to add to the range,
Mm.
definitely. So at the moment we have 5 different comforters, 3 sensory toys, a rattle, some teething toys, but we're bringing out, hopefully in the autumn, maybe in the spring, depending on how production goes, because it's always slow.
Exactly.
Bringing out 3 teddies, because what we don't have is like a cuddly toy, a teddy.
Yeah.
And children can be very specific with what they want. It's finding out what the most popular teddy
And often it's the
choices
label,
are.
isn't it? I remember the girls used to love
the
the
labels.
label rather than the actual teddy.
Yeah.
So it was always the most garish thing that they'd won at the park ride or something. It's like, no, don't choose that one. I wanted the nice, beige white one. And they were like, no, it's going to be the really lurid green one. But there is that balance, isn't there? So to getting a good label that they can sort of do, because they often do that with a label that's sort of like a nunu, isn't it?
Yeah, they do.
Which is extraordinary. But so much research goes into it, I think, doesn't
Yes.
it? Of, you can't bring out loads of different things because each piece is so carefully researched and it's got to be right because it's Emma's. You see, if anything comes out of your house, I'm up for it because I know how exacting you are. So absolutely whatever comes out is going to be great.
It's also about giving people less choice as well.
Yes, but it's helped. There's too much choice out there anyway. So you've done
so
the editing
got,
already.
A few colour choices, but not 10 colour choices.
Yeah.
So we're not saying, buy this green one now, but then come back next year and buy it in pink, and then next year and buy it in another colour.
Yeah.
No, you've got one already. That's fine. That will do you 3 years. Keep that. Keep it safe. Hand it on to siblings.
Yes.
It's about saying to people, no, it's like not this consumerism culture. It's look after that, nurture it, keep it.
Yeah.
So buy less
and use it for longer, as you say. Pass it on to siblings. Give it to a cousin or when you've finished with it, it's going to be still in great shape, and someone else can enjoy it. Yeah.
So one of the things with our baby sleeping bags, which we realised when we started designing them, well, which I say we, it was only me back in the day when I realised, was that almost all baby sleeping bags have a 6-month window. And if we're using our lovely natural organic fabrics and our really quite expensive bamboo wadding that we've developed and designed ourselves to be like maximum temperature control, that ends up being quite an expensive product. So we don't want people to buy, to have to fork out for that many.
Yes.
And secondly, it's not sustainable. And it's not practical to have to keep going up to the attic or into the eaves and putting your storage away every 6 months. So we designed the baby sleeping bags to fit from birth right up until 3 years old.
Which is amazing.
So you can have the same one. You don't need to keep changing it.
And so therefore it is much more cost effective. It's better on your pocket, better on the environment and the whole, headspace for not having to think about it again.
The long-term cost is way less than the...
Yeah. Love that. Oh, you're so clever, Emma, honestly. It is amazing.
Thank you.
It is amazing. You look so fresh-faced. I mean, how on earth do you do that? So you went on to have 2 more children.
Yes.
And grow this incredible brand. How was that for you through the journey? Because you never really stopped work. So you started the company
when
your first was 4 months old, really, because that idea just sprouted quite quickly.
Started researching.
And you haven't really stopped, because I think your maternity leaves are about 1 week long, as far as I can see.
Yeah, no maternity leave, no.
It's about 7 days, maybe if you're lucky, mostly 4.
But just to be clear, I'm not abandoning my baby and going to an office.
No, your babies are always with you. This is the thing.
Me.
So, you really have managed to include your children in the business, but it's very much part of the family, isn't it? Because there are all
Yes.
these wonderful models on your website looking
Yeah.
all cozy and scrumptious.
Yeah.
And what I call those snuggly moments, when they're just waking up and they're in their sleeping bag and in their cot and their cheeks are all rosy and their hair's
Yeah.
all out of place. And it's just like, oh, it's so lovely.
It's lovely if you don't realise that it's 5:30 a.m.
Yes, but that doesn't matter. The picture is great. So pros and cons of weaving a really close relationship with your children and a business. So you are the ultimate, I think, working mum because you seem to do it very well. But
Oh,
what are the
thank you.
biggest
But
biggest
it's
challenges?
It is
Yeah, it's not
challenging.
easy.
It's really challenging, and it's not for everyone. But it's what you feel you can manage. And
Yeah.
some people prefer to be in an office, out of
Yes.
the way. They have their home life and their office life, and that's compartmentalized. So they don't have their kids coming into the office and they can't hear them screaming downstairs. And
Yeah.
some people prefer that.
Yes.
I prefer to be in the house with the kids. So even though they might, the bigger ones are at school and the little one sometimes has childcare. They're in the house and I can hear them and I love that.
Yes.
I just love, and I love that, it's school holidays at the moment. They keep coming into me saying, I've got an earache. I don't feel well,
Yeah.
and they know I'm there.
Yes.
And it gives them comfort knowing that I'm there.
Yeah.
And it gives me comfort. I could hear the little one laughing his head off earlier while I was working. It just made me feel happy. I just thought, oh, he's having a lovely time.
Yeah.
If you're in an office, it's harder to, you
Yeah.
get photos from a nanny or something, but it's not, you don't hear it.
But yeah, it's so interesting because sometimes I found when I could hear them in the house, that made me a bit sad because I was
Yes.
working.
Some
but
people feel
it's
like
so
that.
interesting.
Yeah,
We all
some
have
people
such a
feel like
different
that. Exactly.
way of view, and there's no right or wrong.
No,
actually,
there isn't. It's what
at
works for
all,
you. And
at
if you
all.
don't want to
Yeah.
work at all and stay at home with them 100%, that's also amazing. And I actually slightly wish I could be that
I know.
person.
That's the thing. That's the thing. And I think it's that conundrum, isn't it, of wanting to use our passions for making the world a better place, actually. And if you stumble across something that I think you stumbled across and I stumbled across, making life a little bit easier and better for new parents, and then it won't go away. You can't unsee it.
Exactly.
So
You
I've got
can't
to do
unsee
something
it.
with this.
You can't. And my 7-year-old now is as passionate as me
Amazing.
in plastic-free, non-toxic living. And so he's always saying, what are your next products, Mummy? What are you going to do next? Can I help you design something? Can I help you think of something? What can we do? What can we create? And he'd come back from school and say, so-and-so's had this, but it was all plastic. Do you think you could make one that's not plastic? And that gives me kind of drive and inspiration because you can see that, he's really proud of what I've created. And I could see him telling people on holiday when they say, nice swimming trunks. Thanks, my mother made them.
That's so sweet, isn't it? It's really lovely because it is such a tight balance of wanting to be with them more, but actually knowing you've got stuff to do.
Yes.
And actually, if you can go through this parenting journey and still have really great comms with your children, I think that's job done. I mean, I look at Mira and Poppy at 25 and 22, and they're really cool humans. Like, they're really nice people.
Yeah.
I really like them.
Yeah.
I love them because they're my children, but actually I really like them.
Yes.
And I admire them, and we have an open channel of comms.
Yeah.
Sometimes they, oh, you actually know too much, Mama. I'm very up for that.
Oh, that's such a lovely sign though when they talk to you and tell you everything. I think that's a great, like, if I get to that stage and my kids are telling me everything, I'm gonna think I've done something right.
Yeah. But and I think that's whether you're working at home all the time, or you're working in the office, or you're not working. I mean, you're still, as a mom, if you don't have an actual paid job, raising children is
I think that's actually
huge.
harder.
I think it's
I think
harder.
it's harder. I have Fridays off. I never actually have them off because I'm always juggling kids and work.
Yeah.
But sometimes on a Friday, I love it.
Yeah.
But sometimes on a Friday, when my baby goes to bed for 2 hours, I sit down at my desk and I go, this is the peaceful time of day when I'm working, catching up and manic, but this is the peaceful part of the day. And I think about the mothers who are stay-at-home mothers, and I just think, wow, you do a huge job. It's huge. You're like, the mental overload of that is a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hats off.
Yeah. I think really hats off.
Yeah.
And to still be vibrant. And,
Yes, exactly.
also really like your children.
Yes.
Still. But it's massive. It
Yeah.
is absolutely massive. And I don't know if you did this, but I ended up sort of pretending I wasn't. Well, I just got up at 5 o'clock to do my work, so that then I could be with them on the morning shift, and
Yeah.
then you have the work, and then that sort of fitting in extra work when they were
Yes.
asleep,
Yeah.
and so it's like, oh, this is my free time. But of
Yeah.
course, it's never time for you. That's the
No.
thing. Do you get even 5 minutes, or you're probably way better because I'm really bad at this, but just sitting down and reading a book?
Well,
Does that even
very occasionally, but
happen?
more. I would, if you'd asked me 6 months ago, no, because I've
Yeah.
got a 1-year-old.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
True.
so literally nothing at all. But as he gets a little bit older, there are more and more of those little
Mm,
opportunities where I think,
mm.
actually, I could go and sit at my desk, but
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go and wash my hair.
Yes. Yes.
Something that's rare these days.
Yeah. And that makes you feel $1 million. It's
Yes.
a shower that's probably going to take 20 minutes
Yeah.
max. But you come out, you step out of it as a new woman. Don't you?
Yes.
It's like, oh,
Yeah.
this is quite cool.
Yeah, and it's something you take for granted before you have kids. Oh, having
Yeah.
a shower. No,
Yeah.
it's actually it's a big
Yeah.
deal having a shower once you've got
Yes.
babies.
Massive deal.
Once,
Or a bath.
yes,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh. But, but a bath with a candle for,
Yes.
even 10, 15 minutes, that's also amazing. All these little moments, I
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone listening, I would encourage every new parent to find a little
Try and find
try
those
and moment, and like a
moments.
moment a day.
Yes.
Whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, it
Yeah.
could be just stirring the porridge pot in the morning for 5 extra minutes while you're meditating.
Yes, exactly.
Staring into
Yeah.
space, thinking of nothing, rather than hurrying in that moment.
Yes.
I
Definitely.
I love the concept of glimmers
Yes.
and finding glimmers everywhere. Because I think as a new parent, it's so easy to think, oh my gosh, I've had a terrible day. And the little one had a meltdown in the supermarket, and it's just awful. It's really tough being a parent. But then actually thinking 5 minutes later, that's probably all ended. And you walk to the car park in the supermarket, and when you hold your hand out,
Oh, it's
and
so
their hand goes in
sweet.
yours.
Yeah, it's so
Oh,
sweet.
that's a
That
glimmer.
little squishy
The
hand.
squishy, and you don't
Yeah.
ask for it, and it's
No.
just in, it pops.
Yeah,
Oh,
so sweet.
and you could probably get away with that for a few years. And then
Yeah.
every now and again, it happens again. It's, oh,
Yeah.
that's quite cool. You're
Aw.
20, but that's excellent.
Oh, sweet.
But, glimmers I think are really important, and compartmentalizing the day into quarters. So you can sort of think, oh gosh, the morning's been a disaster. And this could be
Yeah.
at work, or
Yes.
it could be as a parent. And then, but actually I've got 3 more quarters to go. So actually I'm going to have a really good work quarter. Then I've got a really good mum quarter. And then I might even have a little, a dinner
Yeah.
with my other half, who's actually right down the priority list.
It is.
I mean, where does your husband sit in this? Does he just nod and smile and say, yep, okay, you go back to your desk, dear?
Well, he's worse than me for working,
Is he?
actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's gone at 5 o'clock in the morning, and he's not back till
Yeah.
8:30.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
during the week, it's it's just me and the kids.
Yeah, amazing. And the business. And are you quite good at the weekend, taking time out?
Yes, it
Mhm.
depends what stage of the business
Yeah.
I'm currently at. So
Yeah.
sometimes I'll have a whole weekend of working, but
Yeah.
I really try not to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, that's good. That is
Yes.
a good
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
exactly.
And so we have you with us here, this extraordinary expert in environmental toxins, I think. And can you just tell us how you got into that? Because I know you had some health issues that led you into deep diving
Yeah.
into what might be, aside from diet, some of
Yeah.
the causes
Definitely.
of
Yeah.
our sort of struggles and health complaints and
Yeah.
health things.
Yeah. So health issues are on the rise.
Mm.
And I had a lot of health issues in my early 20s,
Mm.
having probably until I was, a teenager, I would say,
Mm.
grown up very healthily.
Yeah.
We grew all our own vegetables
Mm.
and lived, in the countryside.
Mhm.
And snacks were fruit. We
Yeah.
didn't have snacks in the
Yeah.
house. It was if you're hungry, you have fruit.
Yeah.
So it's all very natural, very kind of unprocessed.
Mhm.
Everything was made at home,
Mhm.
luckily.
And your mum, I think, must be a
Amazing
saint.
cook, amazing cook, yeah.
Many children
Yeah,
as well.
many children.
And all
many,
lovely.
Many children.
So I must get her on the podcast. It's like, how did you do that? Your children are amazing.
Yeah, youngest of 6. So she was
Oh
quite
my
busy.
gosh.
And then when I was a teenager, I think I just totally took my health for granted.
Mm.
And, you go to school and you eat you go to the tuck shop and you
Yep.
buy horrible things. And then
Mhm.
you go to London and do your first job, you go on your
Yep.
gap year and you just think, I am invincible, because you
Yes.
feel invincible when you're that
Yes.
age, because you think nothing can take you down.
Yep.
And then suddenly in my early 20s, and so I was eating ultra processed food
Mhm.
probably a lot of
Mhm.
the time without realizing it, without
Mhm.
even knowing what it was.
Yes.
Um, and then in my early 20s, really wasn't very well. And, one thing after the next. And
Mm.
so I started thinking, okay, I now understand
And when do you
about
mind if I
food.
ask you, when you say really not very well, what were you, just very lethargic and
So I had
tired and
very bad allergies, which were
mm,
making me really unwell. And
mm,
then that was the side effect of that, was it really
mm,
bashed my immune system. So I was getting
mm,
everything, like
mm,
literally everything. I was getting
mm.
conjunctivitis twice a month. I was getting all of those sorts of
Yeah, so
things
your
that
body was
always,
just saying, "I'm just not
cystitis,
happy." Yeah.
all of these things constantly. And yeah, everything.
Mm.
And I was always at the doctor's, always. And I thought,
Mm.
no, there's a better way. This
Yeah,
is not,
yeah,
I am
yeah.
invincible.
Yes, yes, exactly.
But I'm not. And actually, my eldest sister, who's 23 years older, had recently had cancer, breast cancer,
Mm.
and she had done a lot of research into diet. So
Mhm.
I loved talking to her and learning from
Yeah.
her about how important diet was. And it was like,
Mm.
wow, okay, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
It all makes sense.
Yes.
But then I went one step further and I was like, but what is all, when we're detoxing,
Mhm.
dietary detox, and when we're on a
Yes.
detox, what are we detoxing from?
Yep.
We're detoxing from
Mm.
all the like environmental toxins that are
Yeah.
everywhere and
Yeah.
increasing so fast as well. Um, so one of my biggest things that I'm really
Mm.
trying to raise loads of awareness about, and one of the worst toxins ever, is microplastics. And they are
Mhm.
everywhere. And they
Mhm.
are in every single organ in our body. They're in our
Mm.
bloodstream. They're in our
Mm.
hearts, our lungs, they're in all our bone
Mm.
marrow, our joints, they're in
Mm.
our brains. Our brains are, guess, in terms of weight, percentage of weight, how much is plastic in our
Oh my
brains?
gosh, I daren't. So I think is a lot is water.
Yeah.
Oh, please
Zero
don't say it.
0.5% of our brains
Wow.
are plastic,
Wow.
microplastics.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about
And yes, what is
microplastics,
microplastic
so
exactly?
microplastics are anything under 5 millimeters in
Mhm.
size,
Mhm.
and the ones that are inside our body is the even smaller type of microplastics, which are called nanoplastics, and these
Mm.
are the ones that are quite frightening because they can pass through the skin
Mm.
barrier,
Mm.
so they get into
Mm.
our bloodstream. So they
Mm.
get into our bloodstream via the skin,
Mm.
via inhalation, so they go straight
Mhm.
into our lungs, and also by ingestion. So
Mhm.
if a kid is sitting and chewing on a polyester toy, it's going straight in.
Yeah.
But also, if they're shaking that polyester toy around their water, that you can look at the top of that water. Shake. I challenge anybody
Yes.
watching this:
Yeah.
shake a polyester toy like this, and then
Yeah.
have a look at the top of the water, and you will see all the microplastics
Wow.
on the top of the water. And then go to a light bulb and do the same thing. Shake it in front of the light bulb, take it away, and you will
And
see
it's not dust,
thousands.
because I think,
No.
most of us would think, "Oh, that's just really dusty. Why is that so dusty?" But actually it's not.
Well,
It's a bit
dust
of that, but
dust is
dust is
also
probably made
pretty
up of.
bad because
Mm.
dust is a lot of microplastics in dust and
Mm.
chemicals. So there's a lot of
Mm.
formaldehyde and heavy metals
Mm.
in dust. So
Mm.
even if it's dust, it's pretty bad.
Mm.
But some of it will be dust, but some
Mhm.
of that dust, a large majority of that dust will be microplastics themselves.
Yeah.
So you can literally see thousands of microplastics when you do that, thousands and thousands in the air. And that's, for kids shaking a sensory toy, they're
Mhm.
just breathing that in the whole time.
Mhm.
So it's those tiny, tiny
Mm.
nanoplastics can't be seen with the naked eye.
Mm.
So they go into the body, they get into
Mm.
our brains. There's a lot of analysis now being done into yes, okay, so it's in all parts of our body, it's in the placenta, it's in, it's everywhere.
Mm.
But what does that mean?
Yes.
So the problem with plastics, microplastics, nanoplastics, is that they are made up of petroleum and a whole
Mhm.
host of chemicals. That's
Mm.
literally what they're made from. So
Mm.
depending on the type of plastic, it will depend on what chemicals are in there.
Mhm.
But most plastics, most, if you take a sample of the plastics in our body,
Mhm.
the sort of top chemicals that you'll find are phthalates, which
Mhm.
make the plastics nice and soft,
Mhm.
formaldehyde,
Mhm.
lead and other heavy metals, PFAS chemicals,
Mm.
which are
Mm.
the forever chemicals that can never get out of our
Mm.
body. So
Mm.
what we do know is that these chemicals themselves, so we haven't done loads of research on the
Mm-hmm.
microplastics, but
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of research
Mm.
on those particular chemicals.
Mm.
BPA is another one.
Yes.
So we know that those chemicals cause a lot of disruption in our body,
Mm-hmm.
hormone disruption,
Mm-hmm.
obesity, the link to Alzheimer's,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
cardiovascular issues, all
Mm.
sorts of issues.
Mm.
And
Mm.
they are being released as the
Mm.
microplastics break down inside our
Mm.
bodies.
Mm.
So there's a lot of research being done right now.
Mm.
And a couple of studies have come out this year, but I know that there's a lot more in the pipeline of
Mm-hmm.
what does this mean
Yes.
for our health?
Yep.
So there was a study, I think it was March, it was in the spring, that came out saying people with a high percentage of microplastics in one of their main arteries, sort of somewhere
Mm-hmm.
around their neck, not sure which
Mm-hmm.
one,
Mm.
are 4.5 times more
Mm.
likely to have a stroke, a heart attack, or premature
Mm.
death within the next 3 years.
Wow.
4.5 times more likely. But
Mm.
what's really interesting about that piece of research
Mm.
is the quantity of microplastics
Mm-hmm.
inside the body that was a huge thing. It was a
Mm.
huge difference.
Mm.
So the people with less were less
Mm.
likely, the people
Yep.
with more were way more likely.
Mm.
So there is a
Mm.
lot that we can do to
Mm.
limit our own family's exposure to these
Mm.
microplastics.
Mm.
So we shouldn't freak out and panic and think, oh, the government needs to do something that, yes, the government needs to do something to control what's in our environment out there.
Yep.
But we spend 90% of our time inside.
Mm.
Kids are
Mm.
spending 90% of their time inside. And of that 90% of their time, probably 60% of that time is spent in their bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
actually, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to focus in on one area, you
Mm.
can really make sure their bedroom is lovely and safe and non-toxic and free from
Mm.
synthetic
Mm.
materials. And that's the best
Mm.
place to start.
Mm.
Never, ever, ever feel overwhelmed and think,
Mm-hmm.
this is too big a topic. I don't
Yes.
know where to start.
Yep.
Go to their bed. You don't even have to do the whole bedroom. Go to their bed
Mm-hmm.
and make sure, and
Mm-hmm.
that's where you
And
start.
what they're wearing.
And what they're wearing.
And their pajamas.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
swaddles when they're really little.
Swaddles and blankets when they're really
Yeah.
little. So many of the
Yeah.
blankets are that fluffy polyester fleece.
Yes.
And you see them
Yes.
chewing on it and you think, oh no, please
Yep.
don't chew on that.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
that's really helpful for anyone listening because you're so brilliant at breaking it down. That yes, we've got the bigger picture, and it is a situation that more and more people are becoming aware of. Early adopters like you, thank goodness for you, because actually you're championing the conversation. And often people don't really want to have the conversation because it's quite, it's hard work,
yes.
perhaps. And
Yeah.
oh my gosh, and
And
they're
there's a
worried.
lot of guilt if they've already
Yes.
got a 3
Yes.
4-year-old
And
and
it
they think,
doesn't
but I've already
matter.
done
It
that.
just almost like start from today. So what I'm really
Exactly.
excited about having this podcast is just what can we do today going forward without even
Exactly.
worrying about the before?
No,
Because the
never-
before is the before.
Never panic about what you've done before.
No.
And our bodies, if you treat them right, are great
Yeah.
at detoxing and fixing themselves.
Yeah.
But you have to treat them
Yeah.
right for them
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So never think, oh my goodness, what have I done? Well, I
Mm.
mean, I'm guilty of it as well.
Yeah.
My child until he was 4 months was surrounded by all
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think back and I think I wish I knew this before.
Mhm.
But there's no
Mhm.
point in thinking about that.
There
And-
actually isn't.
and there's
any.
no point
Yeah.
in beating yourself up about decisions that you made when you didn't have that knowledge.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have the knowledge. You were doing
Yeah.
the best that you possibly could for your kids
Yeah.
with the knowledge that you had at the time.
Exactly.
And that's really important to remember.
Emma, that's parenting.
Yes.
In a
exactly.
nutshell.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Literally.
We can always learn more.
Oh my gosh. Because I'm such a woulda, coulda, shoulda person.
Yeah.
Poor Joey and the girls are like, oh mama, I always go back. Always. I'm really learning to go forward.
Yes.
So talking about not looking after your body, your body will tell you. So
Yes,
your body told you
Yeah.
quite clearly.
Yes. it
My
did.
body's been telling me for years. I've
Yeah.
finally, since I had a bladder tumor 40, no, gosh, when we first met? 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So it must be 17 years ago.
Because it was just before I started.
Yes. And then breast cancer last year. And I think the breast cancer, I think they were both stress induced.
Yes.
And I think
And that's one of the worst toxins.
it's
stress.
exactly.
So don't
So
stress
that is
about
actually a toxin.
Don't
So-
stress about toxins
No.
if it's going to make
No,
you stress
exactly.
because
Don't do it.
that's worse.
So now, in my new Zen, not looking back too much, frame of mind, it is this thing that you get to wake up. We got to wake up today.
Yes.
Like we had the opportunity to wake up.
Yeah.
What a gift.
Yes.
What a
Yeah.
gift. And so with that and all the knowledge that we have around us, just do the best that we can.
Exactly.
And also, I think many people have this, but try and improve by 1% a day.
Yes.
Just 1%.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Exactly.
And that's brilliant advice, that just look at their beds.
Yeah.
Then look at the wider bedroom.
Yeah.
Then look at the house. And does this also apply? I know the answer to this, but actually, I don't think we all know this, to all of the things in our house that we
Yes.
use to clean the
Yes,
house.
to clean the house. Yes.
Because that's a huge one,
It
isn't it?
really
Because
is.
also, we get quite detoxy
Yeah.
when we have a baby, because there are lots of, reasons for us to clean
Yes.
around them.
Yeah.
So your top tip for how to really look after the cleaning products in the
cleaning.
house? What?
So I don't really use many cleaning products.
Yeah.
We have a vinegar water mix, which is our
Yep.
disinfectant.
Yeah.
We have Nancy Birtwhistle's Pure Magic, which we
Amazing.
make up ourselves,
Yep.
which is, from citric acid,
Yep.
basically, which is like used for making jam. So
It
essentially
is.
it's edible.
It is.
Great
Yeah.
for cleaning. It's
Yeah.
great for all the lime scale. It's
Yeah.
the best loo cleaner in the world.
Yeah,
Nobody ever
And
having
it fizzes away very
Oh,
satisfyingly.
after having seen this, you never need to use loo bleach ever again,
Yeah.
because literally if you Google Nancy Birtwhistle's Pure Magic
Yes.
and then look how to make it, super easy. We just have
Yeah.
a couple of bottles made
and
up in our
not
house.
expensive.
We also use all natural cloths to clean, because otherwise you're leaving if you're using those
Yes.
little plastic ones, you're
Yep.
leaving microplastics all over the house. We
Yeah.
have a natural mop,
Mhm.
$9.99. So it's not
Yes.
expensive to buy a natural mop,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
much safer for
Yeah.
the environment, especially when you've
Yeah.
got babies crawling around on the floor and
Yes. Yes.
all of
Yes.
these
It's a lot to
things.
think about, isn't it? And then it's I'm sure you will in time go into weaning things and feeding bowls. Now, I used to use little egg cups. When I first started to wean Mia, it was 25 years ago. So it
Yeah.
would have been she's just turned 25. So just under 25 years
Yeah.
ago, I was a real lone ranger in the organic department. There was a wonderful organic shop near us, but I had to travel to
Yeah.
get there. And everyone thought I was a bit of a eccentric, I
Yeah.
would say. That's a polite way of putting it. But when you start to feed your own babies, for me anyway, it
Yeah.
was when I really started consciously
Yes.
looking at everything in the
Yeah.
environment around her.
Yeah.
And suddenly it was like, well, how do I do that? So I think she learned how to drink out of an egg cup,
Okay.
which is really great because they're often
Yeah.
quite thick
Yeah,
rimmed.
exactly.
And then ramekins, and
Yeah.
just trying not to have,
Oh,
because I'm
amazing.
half Swiss, so the
Yeah.
wooden toys and all that
Perfect.
were,
Yeah.
but there really wasn't that much around. I think almost there's been an explosion of plastics in the
Yeah.
last 25 years, but also an explosion of understanding that they're not so good for us,
Yes.
because it's that constant balance between price
Yeah.
and quality of the
Yes.
product.
Yeah.
So, what I know you're so good at is it doesn't need to be hugely expensive in the long run, but buy once, buy right,
Yeah.
and buy consciously.
And
I
buy
think
from
that's
charity shops.
Yes.
I've got so many of our kind of basics from
Yeah.
charity shops, especially clothes, like baby clothes,
Mm.
baby growers. Just go and find, in the charity shop rail, there'll be loads of like nice cotton.
Yeah.
They might have a bit of a stain on, but
Yeah.
for everyday use, they're going to
Yeah.
get stained anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can be thrifty and
Mhm.
be natural and
Yes.
non-toxic. You can
Yes. Yes.
do both.
You
If
can do both. And if you want to buy all new, it's now possible,
Yeah.
much more than it was, even with nursery furniture.
Yes.
It's very interesting when you were talking about that there are pieces of lead in the baby's toys,
Yes.
because we're so conscious that you can't
Yeah.
have lead in the paint.
Yeah.
But now, it makes its way
Yes, it
elsewhere.
does.
And
It
I think
really
reading
does.
labels probably must be a really great thing that we can do
Yeah.
initially. Before you buy something, read the label.
A lot of the
Um,
labels are very misleading. So a
Right.
lot of the things will say non-toxic.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything. Anybody can say
Uh-huh.
non-toxic.
Yeah.
Literally, you don't have to be able to verify
Yeah.
that claim.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So it is hard to kind of read
Yeah.
between the lines. And if it
Yes.
says non-toxic, just pop onto the website, just check out the brand ethos, just see
Yes.
what other products they're selling and what they're made of. And
Yep.
there are a lot of eco baby brands that
Mhm.
are not that eco, and they have a
Mm.
very high polyester content. And
Mm.
what's sad is that they have a high recycled polyester content.
Mm.
And the reason that's sad is
Mm.
because the recycled polyester,
Mm.
this is where there's a disconnect between sustainability and non-toxic living.
Mm. What's the
Re,
difference between the two, really? Yeah.
they're not always, sometimes
Yeah.
they're the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go hand in hand, sometimes they
Mhm.
don't. And
Mhm.
recycled plastic is a great case point for that. So recycled
Mm.
plastics are way more toxic than virgin plastics
Gosh.
because they go through, firstly, in the production, when they're going into the recycling process, they're contaminated with other plastics.
Mhm.
And that's why recycled leggings often contain things that shouldn't be in that polyester, like
Mhm.
BPAs. There's a few of the big brands, they
Mhm.
found BPA and phthalates in their leggings. That shouldn't
Mhm.
be in polyester, but it's
Mhm.
been contaminated in the recycling process.
Mm.
And then when they recycle it, it gets subjected to very, very, very high heat. And what we
Mhm.
know about plastic is when it's heated
Mm.
high, it releases a lot of the chemicals that are in it.
Mhm.
So then the end products,
Mhm.
and there was a big study done on this that came
Mhm.
out in 2024, that recycled plastics have, I think, up to like 100 times
Mm.
more
Mm.
toxins that are being
Mm.
released from them. So recycled polyester is not the answer if you're looking for non-toxic
And so
solutions.
that's a good example of sustainability, is it? So it's
So
reusing things for the long
there's
term.
also a big debate about
Yeah.
that because,
Mm.
in my opinion, if you recycle a plastic, you should recycle it into a hard plastic that isn't
Mhm.
going to be easily broken down.
Mhm.
If you're taking plastic bottles out of the ocean,
Mhm.
they're a hard plastic.
Yeah.
It's great to take them out of the ocean.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good job.
Yes.
Then they turn them into polyester. Polyester
Mhm.
is classed as a
Mhm.
primary microplastic
Mm.
because it sheds so many microplastics. And
Mm.
once it starts shedding those microplastics, there's no getting them back. You can't go and collect those
No.
microplastics from the ocean. That's it. They're in there.
Mm.
That's the harm is done. So you're
Mm.
speeding up the process. So
Mm.
yes, a whale might not swallow an entire bottle, but the little organisms in the
Mm.
ocean have
Mm.
many more microplastics to deal with.
Mm.
Plus, they're
Mm.
then getting into us, the human
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
And we now know
Mhm.
that that's, not
Yeah.
really not a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interestingly, one of the brain studies done on the microplastics in the brain
Mhm.
showed that the brain, there were around 90 brains in the study, all different ages. So it's
Mhm.
not just having, the old people that are dying,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
people dying of accidents. So it's
Mhm.
like some
Yeah.
are healthy brains, some are
Yeah.
not. So the study done in 2024
Mm.
compared the brain studied in 2016. So not that long ago.
Mhm.
That's when I started the business.
Mhm.
Um, the microplastics in the brain were
Mm.
50% higher. So that's how
Yeah.
many more microplastics people are being
Mm.
exposed to just in that
Mm.
short 7-year
Mm.
time frame.
Mm.
You don't have to be purist about this,
Mm.
but
You've
I
got to
would
live.
never wear a polyester top. I try not to wear them around the kids, full stop. But
Mm.
I would never wear one if I was going to wear a baby in a sling that's going to be
Mm.
sleeping here,
Mm.
breathing it
Mm.
in or rubbing
Mm.
around on it and release it.
Mm.
Every time they rubbed on it, releases more
Mm.
microplastics into the
Mm.
like little bit of air that they're
Yeah.
breathing. So
Yeah, yeah,
just be
yeah.
kind of wise with what you do with your polyesters.
Yes. Yes.
Try not to have them. In an ideal world, I would get
Yeah.
rid of everything, and I'm
Yeah. Because
I've
feeding bras must be a case in point that it's almost impossible.
feeding bras are tricky.
Mm.
Yes, I did have some cotton ones, and then I just gave up on feeding bras. I just pull
Mm.
them down. It's
Yes.
ruining them, and
Yeah. Yeah.
but I just have the nice. I think it's Warren that do nice
Uh-huh.
organic cotton ones, and I just pull
Yeah.
them down.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think that's it. It's doing the best you can
Yeah.
with what you have in that
Yes.
moment.
Exactly.
And so, other tips from you on children, so growing children.
Yeah.
So they've gone past the baby stage
Yes.
and then they're pootling around.
Yeah. Causing
So
chaos.
causing chaos. You've just launched a swimwear range, which
Yes.
I'm quite excited
Oh,
about.
thank you.
Well done. Because it's lovely. You've got a few designs
Yeah.
and solutions,
Yeah.
really, from 0 up
Yeah,
until
so we've got swim nappies from 0 to
yeah,
2 and then swimwear from 2 up until
yeah,
13.
yeah.
And sounds crazy saying this,
Mm.
And if I'm wrong, please call
Mhm.
me out in the
Mhm.
comments
Yeah.
because also I would love to know.
Yeah.
But we are the first brand in the world to
Mm.
launch a totally natural
Mm. Isn't that
swimwear
amazing?
range for
Yeah.
kids. And that is insane.
Yeah.
Where are all the other brands? You know,
Yeah.
when we were little, there was
Mm.
cotton swimwear
Yeah.
available. There was also polyester, but there was cotton available.
Yep.
Where is it all gone and why?
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, I don't want to be the only one in the world doing it. I want
Yes.
other people to do it.
Yep.
And the other, even if you Google organic swimwear, organic cotton
Mm.
swimwear or natural swimwear,
Mhm.
all of the eco,
Mhm.
recycled
Mhm.
polyester brands that we've just spoken
Mhm.
about that is
Mhm.
not healthy, all of
Mm.
they come up at the top of the Google search because
Mm.
Google, firstly, doesn't know what to do when people
Mm.
search for something
Yeah.
that doesn't
Yeah.
exist.
Yeah.
And secondly, they bid on those search terms.
Mm.
So they are
Mm.
bidding on organic swimwear when
Yep.
they are recycled polyester swimwear. So it's not, I
Yes.
mean, it's like the most toxic fabric that you could use, and they're claiming that
Yeah.
it's eco-friendly and
Yeah.
sustainable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um,
Oh, Emma, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because actually we don't know, and as parents, we all start and continue in the best interests of our children, armed with the knowledge. And it's all about knowledge, isn't
yes,
it?
it's
And you
all
have
about the
this
knowledge.
knowledge,
Yeah.
and then it goes throughout, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether we look after ourselves
Yeah.
better by eating better,
Yeah.
wearing better things. We can, do the best we can to stay healthy for our children. I think that's the thing, without again
Exactly.
putting excess pressure.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much that we can do
There's so much.
that's within
Yeah.
our reach,
Yes,
which is really
exactly.
lovely. And what about in cars?
The cars in general are not a great, you know, but there's nothing you can do about
We're
that.
in a
So
car.
don't
Exactly.
freak out
Yeah.
and think, I'm never going in my car. It's
Yeah.
so toxic. You know, if you have worked on making your house nice and non-toxic, just, you know, focus on the wins, focus on what you have done,
Yes.
and don't
Yes.
panic about the toxins you're going to be exposed to in the car
Yes.
because it's inevitable. You can't just not go in a car. You can't
Yeah.
not live. You can't
Yeah.
not go out
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
What you can do is open the windows,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it's hot, because that's
Mm-hmm.
when a lot of the toxins in the car are released. On a really
Mm-hmm.
hot sunny day, you get in
Mm-hmm.
and you could smell that sort of strange smell.
Mm-hmm.
That's all the chemicals
Mm-hmm.
coming off.
Mm-hmm.
So just open the window. Like if you can, if you're
Mm.
organized, you go open the windows before you get in. Great. If
Yes.
not, just
Yeah.
open them as you go along for the first few minutes and
Yeah.
just get that
Yeah,
air
yeah. And then
circulating.
if you have aircon, then use the aircon if you need to
Exactly.
use the aircon.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's really useful. So opening those windows in the first little bit. I'm so interested in just this whole area about how perhaps you and I can just change things and change the
Yeah.
conversation or seed the conversation. I
Yes.
think that's it.
Yeah.
Just relatively, our challenges are different. We, 25, 35 years ago, not me, but people were smoking in their cars with the
Yes.
windows
And in
shut.
the restaurants.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Next to all the kids.
Yes. And then in the aeroplanes, and
The
you had just the
aeroplanes.
curtain. You had the smoker here and your new, I remember it. Precious new baby, 4
Oh my
months old,
goodness.
or walking through the smoking carriages to get to the
Yeah.
non-smoking carriages on the
Oh.
train. So I mean, it's very interesting, is it? We have
Yeah.
different things to think about, but I think
Yes.
knowledge is the key.
Knowledge is the key. And I think because this sort of boom of plastics and synthetic
Mm,
materials has
mm,
happened in recent decades, the
mm,
research and the problems are now catching up.
mm,
And I think it will come full circle. And there are, you
mm,
know, we are not the only brand doing
mm, mm.
natural baby
Yeah,
products, natural kids products. We are the only
yeah.
one doing swimwear. But what's interesting is when I started, we were one of the only companies 6 years ago to be focusing on the non-toxic angle. So not the eco
Mm,
angle or the
yes,
sustainable angle.
yes.
And and a lot of those eco baby companies use a lot of recycled plastics
Yep,
and polyester blends. And
yep.
we are an eco kids company
Mhm,
because we do also
mhm.
care a lot about the environment and focus a lot on that. But our primary concern is the
Mm,
non-toxic angle.
mm, mm,
And we were one of the first and only companies 6 years ago to be focusing solely on the like
mm,
non-toxic.
mm,
We are honing in on making this
mm,
safe and non-toxic.
mm, mm.
Um, Happily,
Yeah,
there are now more brands doing
yeah,
that
great.
in lots of different sort of
Mhm.
mini sectors.
Yeah,
And if you go onto
yeah.
our website, you'll find our conscious brands directory, and we list all our
Mm,
favorite brands doing lovely things.
brilliant,
So if you come
brilliant.
to us and you think, oh, I can't find a
Yeah,
X or a Y,
yeah.
have a look on our conscious brands
Amazing,
directory because one of the other
amazing.
brands might be doing
Yeah,
that.
and I love that about you, because you're very, you're not exclusive, you're very inclusive. We're all in this together, frankly.
You know, I care about the
Mm,
health of every single baby on the
Mm.
planet. And
Mm.
I want all the parents to have the knowledge to make their
Mhm.
decisions. And if they want
Mhm.
to make the decision and go and buy a polyester something, fine. If you've got the knowledge, it's just
Mhm.
what I can't bear is if people would have made a different choice if they had known that.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm just passionate about sharing the knowledge and
Yeah.
giving everybody
Yeah.
the information so
Yeah.
they can, they can make informed
Yeah.
choices
Yeah. Yeah.
about
Yeah.
what they're doing and what they're buying for their
Yeah.
kids.
Amazing. Amazing. And then in the process, you're making these incredible products. So a couple of the ones I want to touch on was your non-toxic blackout blinds. And I have a checkered
Yes.
history with blackout
Yeah.
blinds, and I'm not such a huge fan. But
Yes.
actually, yours, I have to say, are coming up trumps. I'm happy to be turned, in
Oh,
my
great.
opinion. I
Okay.
know you've been trying for years. I said no, 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 no. But actually, I know they help people, and they're easy to use, and
Yes.
they are non-toxic.
So
So
what
that's
is
good.
your issue with it? Is it because you don't think
I
babies should have to rely on a dark environment?
Yes, I'm quite a
Yes.
fan of
Okay.
daytime light noise
Yeah.
music, life,
Yes.
and then nighttime darker and quieter, so that when you jump in and out of
Yeah.
time zones or you're going to stay in someone else's house
Yes.
and you don't have the
Yeah.
blackout blind and their curtains aren't quite
Yeah.
as dark as
Yeah.
yours, your baby can still sleep. That's my sort of
Yes.
worry. But to
However,
assuage anyone who has a similar
yeah.
thinking to me, what would you say?
Well, I think it very much depends on your own baby
Yeah,
because my middle child
yeah.
was a dream sleeper. She would have
Mm,
slept anywhere. She
yes.
didn't need the blackout blinds.
Yeah.
She's still a great sleeper. She's 5, it's
Mhm.
just her personality type. She's
Yeah.
just a good sleeper.
Yeah.
My 2 boys, I will do anything to try
Yeah.
and get them to sleep,
Yeah.
literally anything. And so the 7-year-old who he used blackout blinds everywhere because
Mm,
he literally just wouldn't sleep. There
mm.
was no amount of like trying to get him to sleep in
Yeah.
a light room that would have worked.
Yeah, yeah,
He would
yeah.
just sit up, stare around. He gets
Yeah.
really bad FOMO about going to sleep ever since he was a baby. He
Mm,
just wants to be around. He just
mm.
wants to see stuff. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
unless you make it totally
Yeah.
dark, he
Yeah.
wasn't going
And
to
do you
go to
think you
sleep.
can wean him off? So say he
He's
what
weaned.
happens
He's
when he
natural,
goes? Yeah, so
naturally
that's
weaned.
very interesting because this is really good.
Yeah.
This is great because so when he goes to stay with someone else,
Yeah.
he's not going to take his blackout blind
No.
in his backpack.
So once he was about 4 or 5,
Mhm.
he just didn't need it anymore.
Yeah.
And I used to put it up in his bedroom, but some
Yeah.
days I would forget to put it up
Yeah.
behind the curtain.
Yeah.
And I'd think, oh, it's 7 o'clock and
Yeah.
he's still not awake and it's been light since 4. He
Yes.
clearly doesn't need it
Yeah.
anymore.
And I've got my BDI on your adult dressing gowns,
Ah,
which look very exciting
yeah, they're
to
very
match the
snuggly.
children's. How cute is that?
That would have warmed you up after your cold sea swim the
I
other
know.
day.
I had a lovely sea swim. I
You
would
needed
have
the
loved
dressing
that.
gown to put on. It's so cozy. It's so warm.
I know. I know. And they look so snuggly, don't they?
They're very
It's a really
snuggly,
nice thing. And
yeah.
actually just for pootling around after you've had a baby as well.
Yeah,
It's
they're
just
great
like,
for
oh,
breastfeeding
yeah.
and for getting up in the night when it's cold and you need
Yeah.
to go and breastfeed your baby.
Yeah.
And yeah, because
Yeah.
they're all
Yeah.
totally
'Cause they've got a
microplastic
hood
free.
as
It's got a
well.
hood,
I
yeah.
mean, oh my gosh, you just hide under your
Yeah.
hood.
Yeah.
Just have a little moment to yourself
Yes.
in your dressing gown.
Yeah. And the hood is very handy if you live in the countryside and you have to sort of pop out
Yes.
to do the bins or feed the chickens
Yeah.
like I do
And
and
it's
it's raining.
Yeah.
Hood.
And so now you have 3 children. I mean, that's
Yes.
incredible.
Yeah.
And given you started the business when your oldest was 4 months,
Yes.
what was the one piece of kit that you wouldn't have lived without?
So the sleeping bag.
Mhm.
I literally would never go anywhere without it, and I
Mhm.
still don't for the 1-year-old.
Mhm.
Even if we
Mhm.
go out for lunch, I'll take the sleeping bag.
Yeah. And is it the same
Um,
one that you've used
it's
for all 3?
I
I know
do
it's
have.
evolved in design.
It's evolved in design,
Yeah.
so they have. They
They
wear
are
the
testers.
samples.
Excellent. Yeah.
So I don't ever launch a product until they have sampled it for about a year
Yeah.
to make sure that we have really put it through its paces,
Yeah.
to make sure it's going to last, to make sure it's going to wash
million
well,
washes,
to make
yeah.
sure it doesn't. Our first ever sleeping bags, they messed up the seatbelt pockets, so my son's little foot was coming out the seatbelt
Yeah.
pocket in the night. So just to make
Yeah.
sure those things
Yeah.
aren't going to
Yeah.
happen. And yeah, so the baby sleeping bag is the one thing I would never, ever, ever go anywhere without. And I would say, the polyester ones just aren't the answer.
Mm. Mm.
When my son was 4 months old, when I was starting to think about this, one of the other triggers for me was we went to Greece on holiday. And I was packing his bag and I thought, what am I going to take? Well, he
Mhm.
needs a sleeping bag, which wasn't our sleeping bag at the
Yeah.
time. It was, a polyester one that was the only one available on the
Yeah.
market. And thought, well, it's Greece, but it's also April. So
Yes.
is it going to be cold? Is it going to be hot? Will the hotel have air conditioning?
Mm-hmm.
Will it be boiling hot and unbearable in our room? So I'm going to have to pack 3 different togs
Yep.
and 2 of each
Yep.
tog because he's going to be sick
One
on
on and
them,
one in the
and I'm
wash.
going to
Yep.
need one in the laundry.
Yeah.
And I packed a suitcase full of sleeping bags. So I
Yeah.
thought, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you don't use polyester in your sleeping bag and you have a totally natural wadding, you only need one for all of the seasons and all of the eventualities. Well, you need one in the wash if you've got a sicky baby.
So one on, one in the wash. That's it for 3 years.
Because
ordinarily they're pretty much sized at 0 to 6, 6 to 12, 2 to 3 if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And unusually after 3, really. But
and then one tog, 2.5, 3.5. So you need so many different togs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so many different sizes.
Yes.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
You don't need all of those togs.
Yeah.
Ditch the polyester.
Yeah.
So this is why we use bamboo in our wadding, because it's the way we've done the bamboo, the way we've built the wadding is it's absolutely amazing. It's literally like magic for making your temperature the perfect your body the perfect temperature all night. And I always knew that because of the testing that we've done and the TOG ratings and the babies that have all slept in it, the feedback that I've had. Our sleeping bags are have the leading temperature range on the market.
Amazing.
So from 13 degrees up to 27 degrees all in one bag.
And then we're not worrying. I think that's the thing.
Worrying about
because
overheating
we know overheating
cold.
is not a good thing.
It's not a good thing.
I think that is taking the worry out.
Yeah,
at least one thing.
Exactly. And when your kid has a temperature, and we know as adults how horrible it is to have a temperature and you feel hot and cold and hot and cold. So just knowing that, wrapping up a baby in polyester when they've got a temperature is just going to send all the wrong signals to their body temperature. So
amazing.
They're lovely when your baby's not well as well, just to keep them all nice and regulated.
If I might ask, what your one pearl of wisdom would be to give to anyone expecting their first baby, what might it be?
So I feel quite strongly about this, actually.
There's a surprise.
Follow your own instincts. And I know it might sound cliche, but really do. And I fell into the trap when I first had a baby of asking advice from people, which is great. And always ask advice. Get everybody's advice, but then make your own mind up. And I had a few people that I have asked advice from that had a few kids, and I had my very first.
Yep.
And so I thought their advice was gospel.
Yes, interesting.
And often they would say it in a very forceful way, like their way is the only correct way. Whatever advice you're given when you're a parent, it's not the only way. That is never the only way. And if it's not the right way for you, just make your own mind up and be confident in your own decisions. I think one example is, I was told by several different people who had several children, leaving them to cry and sleep training was the only option. So do what feels right for you and your own family, and don't feel pressured, and don't feel like other mothers know because they have more kids than you or that they've done it before. They do have a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of wisdom to be got from other mothers, but they won't have the same priorities and the same thoughts as you.
Amazing.
So that's my one piece of advice.
I love that.
Follow your own instincts.
I love that.
Be strong to your instincts.
Yes. Well, it's worked for you very well. And you are such a good example of someone who has, I would say, stumbled across something, because I think your repeated illnesses in your early 20s were guardian angels, actually, for all of us. Because you had that, you stumbled across this aha moment of the toxicity and the world that we're all living in. And then thank goodness for that, because now you've launched this amazing company, which has been going for years now.
Yeah.
And it's only getting better and better.
Oh, thank you.
And, helping one baby and one toddler and one adult at a time. I think it's amazing. I've learned so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
It was lovely being here.
For having made the time. And, you speak so wisely. I feel I could chat to you for literally hours.
Oh, thank you.
Or
well,
hear
it's
all your pearls.
So nice to be here, back where it all started,
Yay,
actually.
I was so excited to have played a tiny part.
Yeah, a huge part.
In this empire builder that sits in front of me.
Not only was it the experience of working in the baby market, it was also your amazing wisdom of just, What I love about you actually and your advice is that it plays into what I just said, which is follow
Mm,
your own instincts and be unique to your own circumstances. And that's what I love about what you do
mm,
is because you look at everybody's individual circumstances. So for you, it's not a one size fits all.
yep,
You really take
yep.
the time to think about each
Mm,
individual client and
mm,
exactly what they need for their lifestyle.
mhm,
And I love
mhm,
that.
mhm. Oh,
It's just
thank you.
so kind of bespoke.
I love that. I love that you've honed in on that because I feel that so strongly. So I think actually our pearl of wisdom is so aligned because we are all individuals and
Yes.
we do parent differently.
And babies are
And
also
babies are all
individual.
they're all
So my 3
individual.
are so
Yeah,
different. I could not have
yeah.
done the same thing with each of them.
No. And isn't that fascinating? Out of the same ingredients.
Exactly.
You could produce three such different people. And I've loved that. That's been one of the pleasures for me watching my two grow, is seeing how different yet similar
Yeah,
they are.
yeah,
Obviously, they share the same
yeah,
DNA and they've been raised in the same household,
yeah.
and yet
Your girls are
they're their
so
own
different.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah, wonderful.
yeah,
It's just that's such a privilege,
yeah,
really,
it
to see
is.
that.
It
And I
is.
always talk about roots and wings, but giving them the roots so that they can then fly on their own.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't like them flying off, I have to say.
Oh,
I don't like it at all. So
oh,
Poppy's just moved home after uni, and I'm like, yes, how long for? You can stay as long as you like. I don't
oh.
like your wings after all. But actually seeing them doing their own thing and being really fulfilled
Yeah, it's
and coming
lovely.
back because they want to, not because
Yes.
they feel obliged to come back
Yeah.
for an occasion.
Yeah.
But actually, that's the dream, and doing
That
the
is the
best we
dream.
can. So in
Exactly.
this non-toxic discussion, I think it's just doing the best we
Yeah.
can, and learning more every
Learning
day.
more.
Actually,
Learning more. And just try and do one thing today.
yeah,
If you're feeling overwhelmed by this conversation, you're thinking, there's no way I can
yeah,
even make a start. Just go and do one thing.
yeah,
And then when you're happy with that one thing and it's stabilized and you kind of
hmm
got over making the change,
yeah,
go and do one more.
yeah,
It's not a rush.
yeah,
Just one change is going to
yeah.
make a big difference. So just do one thing at a time and do the things that are easiest for you.
Yes,
It
yes.
might be that you only buy natural things from now on,
Hmm.
or you might want to remove some of the things that you have to replace, but not everybody has the budget to go and replace
Yeah.
everything. So it might be that you just make the choices from now on.
Yes, I love that. Just one thing. So that's 365 things a year. And when things run out,
Yes,
then just replace
make a
it
better
with
choice.
something
Yeah,
non-toxic.
exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Emma, thank you so much. Will you come back
Oh, it's
again?
lovely. I will do. Yes.
We've
Tomorrow.
got more to talk about. Hooray, yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you've enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe to our Anita's List podcast show to stay up to date with our latest conversations. Together, we can all be part of the village to support new parents.